natural selection children's book. Please keep in mind I'm going to be going over all the parts of this project in this video, so feel free to skip ahead to the section that you need. Part 1 will be the overview. Part 2 is on brainstorming. 3 is on storyboarding. 4 is on illustrations. 5 is on uploading your illustrations. And 6 is about writing your final book. Part 1, overview of the project. In this project, you're going to write a fully written children's storybook that illustrates the process of natural selection. Included in your book will be 3 fully illustrated pages that must include background, foreground, and middle ground elements, as well as limited empty white space. That means your illustration should take up the majority of the page. You will also need to provide clear documentation of the creative process through your brainstorming and storyboarding. Here's the overview of the project. First, you'll read or watch the story How Peloses Evolved Skinny Noses and answer a few check-in questions. Then you'll brainstorm your own animal to write your book about. And then think about how the environment will change and how that will affect the traits of your animal's population. Once you have your ideas, you'll create a storyboard. And from your storyboard, you'll write a story within your Google Slides. And you'll illustrate your story on paper and then transfer your illustrations to your Google Slides. With that done, you'll assemble and write your final story. Part 2, brainstorming. In the brainstorming phase, you want to sketch out your organism. This could be a plant or an animal. Here's where you really get to use your imagination and knowledge of living things. Play around with some ideas. Try multiple different animals. After you've done that, decide where it lives, what it eats, and any important traits that help it survive. These decisions are going to be really important as you move on. Now that you have your organism created, it's time to decide how the environment will change. Things to consider might be how the climate could change. Maybe it gets hotter, or colder, or drier, or there's more rain. You could also change the amount of food. Perhaps a new type of food is available, or less food is available. In addition, you could change predators. New predators could come, or old predators could leave. Maybe there's more access to water or space, or maybe there's less of those things. Finally, maybe something in the environment changes that affects camouflage of your animal. These are the sort of things you want to think about and play with ideas before you get too far into your story. Once you know how the environment will change, it's time to determine which traits would be useful or advantageous and which will be harmful. And then describe how the population would change over time based on those advantageous and disadvantageous traits. Here's some tips. You may want to consider planning backwards. So you've drawn an incredible organism. Maybe you could think about how could the environment change that would result in your organism. Instead of thinking as you're drawing as the starting place, you might want to think about it as the ending. An important reminder is that the variation of traits need to exist before the environment changes. Organisms don't suddenly get new traits when the environment changes. The variation needs to be present for natural selection to work. Part 3, storyboarding. So a storyboard is just a quick, rough plan of your book. You can see on the right, my storyboard involves loose sketches, and small notes written underneath each page. Your sketches should be loose and quick. None of the drawings should be highly detailed or take very long to draw. Underneath each of your sketched pages, you should record the ideas of what will be written on those pages, and that'll be important when you go to write your final book. I can't stress enough how important the storyboarding aspect is. A storyboard is really the time to try out ideas and story beats, things that'll change, the conflict, the climax of your story. This is also a great time to play with layout and composition. Be thinking about how you could work in the foreground, middle ground, and background elements in your illustrations. You also want to look at your storyboard as a whole. Are all of your drawings kind of the same? Well, maybe mix it up. And you also really want to think about how you're telling your story with your illustrations. Reminder that this is a children's book and that the children will be looking at the pictures as well as listening to your words. So you need to tell your story through your images. When it comes to illustrations, here's a few things to consider. Reminder that you need 3 fully illustrated pages. That means that there should be limited or no empty white space. In your storyboard, consider how you can fill the majority of the page with your illustration. You'll also want to be considering how you'll address background, what's behind your characters, and how will you fill in things like sky or the environment they're standing on. You will also want to consider the medium you'll be using. Think about if you're going to use pencil with shading, or color pencil, or markers. Each different medium should be considered slightly differently as you are storyboarding. Part 4, illustrations. So you've completed your sketch, and now you get to choose your art medium. You can choose between color pencil, pencil with shading, or marker. If you decide to do color pencil, here's some tips, tricks, and lessons learned. I would highly recommend test your colors on a scrap piece of paper to play with how hard to press in order to get some shading and highlights in your drawing. I would also highly recommend labeling your colors on your scrap paper so that you can repeat the exact same colors between your 3 illustrations. A heads up about color pencil is that it is a slow medium to work with. Coloring in large areas with color pencil will take time. The nice thing about color pencil is that your details remain. So if you draw a highly detailed image, color pencil will not go over it and will not cause you to lose your details. If you decide to go with pencil with shading, one good thing is that it's generally very quick. Just like with color pencil, you should play with how hard to press the pencil in order to create variation in shading. I would recommend trying out your shading techniques on a separate piece of paper before you start applying it to your final illustration. Just like with color pencil, pencil can be tricky to fill large areas with. One thing you might want to try and play with is different line styles in order to fill large areas. And finally, there's marker. Marker is fast. If you're going to outline your drawings, I would recommend outlining your drawings with much thicker outlines to accommodate the marker. They're not as precise as pencil or color pencil, so make your life easy and have bolder outlines. One thing to know is that marker covers up some of the finer details, and so you might want to draw simpler shapes if you're going to go with marker. One tip, if you want to create shading with marker, is to color your illustration with marker once and then go over certain areas a second time with the marker, and you'll create some natural shading. Part 5. Uploading your illustrations. So all of your illustrations will be completed on paper, and you need to get them into your Google Slide. Here's how. If you'll be using the computer camera, you'll have to hold your illustration in front of the computer's camera. Then, in your Google Slides, click Insert in the toolbar, select Image, select Camera, then take a photo of your work and click the Insert button. A picture of your artwork will be inserted into the slide, and then you can move and crop your image to the correct size. A better option may be to take a photo with your phone and upload it to Google Drive. To do that, take a picture with your phone and upload the photo to your Google Drive. You may need to install Google Drive to your phone. Once you're there, open up your Google Slides, click Insert, select Image, select Drive, and then locate your photo in Google Drive. Then you can insert that image, move, and crop your image to the correct size. Here's how to crop. Once your image has been inserted, simply double-click the image, and you'll see that you get black rectangles and L's around your image. Drag the corners to the location that you want to crop to, and click Enter. That'll crop off all the sections of the photo that you don't want. Once your image has been cropped, you simply move the image onto the correct page. You might need to cut and paste into a different slide. One really important thing is to make sure that your image matches the writing on your slide. As you're writing your story, you may want to move writing to different pages, so make sure to move your image as you make adjustments to your story. Part 6. Writing your final book. In this step, you take the notes that you wrote on your storyboard and transform them into your final book. When writing a children's book, each page should only have between 15 and 65 words. Since you're writing for children, make sure you are sticking to simple sentences. And remember that your writing should match your illustration. Also, it's okay to use informal writing. You're writing a children's book, not a formal report. Mix up how you write with your language, include expressive words. It's okay to be informal. And just a tip, there's 23 words above on this slide. Some things to keep in mind. As you write your final story, it will change, and that is okay. As you start writing your story, you'll realize that parts are missing, there's parts you want to add on to, there's interesting details you need to include. Make those changes, it's alright. You'll also find that as you write your story, you'll see spots that need new illustrations. This might be a great opportunity to illustrate one of your 3 full illustrations, and it's okay if your book is missing some spots. Final reminder that this book needs to teach about natural selection, so make sure that you are hitting the science requirements as well as the arts requirements.